For anyone that spent more than 5 minutes on the water, you know that feeling. You check 2 or 3 weather apps from home, and they all paint a picture of a nice, easy afternoon. And then the second you get in open water, and the actual conditions make a total liar out of the weather models. Today was supposed to be a simple 3 to 4 hour sail out of Freeport. I brought along a new friend, Eric, and his 13-year-old son, Ethan. I checked the weather models before leaving, both windy and PredictWind, and they both agreed. Winds were forecasted at a sustained 4 to 6 knots, gusting up to 11, and a lazy 1.5 foot swell. Perfect conditions for a casual afternoon as I practiced shorthanding the boat. Except that's not exactly what was waiting for us. As soon as we cleared the channel, we weren't seeing the 4 to 6 knots. We were seeing 10 to 14 consistently, and that tiny swell was more like 3 to 4 foot with an occasional 5-footer mixed in. Coming from sailing the Corpus Christi Bay to now sailing open water in the Gulf, the dynamics are completely different. In the Bay, chop is usually driven by wind over shallow depth, but that's protected. Offshore, there's long, unbroken water combined with changes in the bottom depth as you clear the jetties. Even on a light wind day, if an offshore swell hasn't settled from a system 2 days ago, your entry into open water is going to be significantly sharper than anything the weather app might suggest. Now on paper, 3 to 4 feet doesn't sound terrifying because it's not, but the real problem isn't the height, it was the wave period. The intervals were short and tight, turning what should have been a gentle roll into a washing machine. Only thing about these action cameras, they never quite pick up the wave. When I woke up this morning, the forecast was showing about 2 knots, and about the time we were going to push off the dock, I saw 4 to 6, but I don't know if you can see behind me, but we are seeing swells 3 to 4 right now. Now, I'll give you, it's not a lot of wind. Must be something going on offshore. I don't see any thunderheads build or anything, but we got a hell of a swell, but the boat's handling it really well. Got a new crew on here today. We have Eric and his son. Been a great help. He's a Navy guy, so a ton of experience being on a boat. I'm not worried about him getting seasick. That's probably the biggest issue when you have somebody new on a boat. It's just, who's going to get sick and not. If you're going to get sick, this is the kind of role you'd be in. A lot different than last week, went completely flat. And but today, it's a little bit of a bumpy ride, but I really like it. So I'm not in any rush to go anywhere, so we'll go out for about an hour and turn around. For Ethan, that rapid, sharp motion took its toll. Seasickness doesn't care about your sailing plans. Instead of pushing through the 20-25 miles, we made the call to shorten the trip and head back. It's easy to get caught up in the mission and want to hit the distance goal just because you planned it on paper. But misery isn't good training, and it's certainly not fun. Once seasickness sets in with short period chop, it rarely gets better while you're still beating into it. Turning around wasn't just about comfort, it was about keeping the experience positive, so Ethan would want to get back on a boat again someday. Knowing when to call it early is one of the most important decisions you can make. So again, I remind you that the weather app this morning showed that we were going to have I think it was averaging about 4 to 6 knots of wind, and we are sustained right now at 16 to 17. Of course, I start recording now, it shows 15 and a half, but still, 3x what it said it would be. All this raises a natural question. How do multi-million-dollar forecasting models miss the mark by more than double in their predictions? I was talking about this recently to retired meteorologist Frank Billingsley, and he brought up a good point that stuck with me. Predicting wind speed and direction for any one specific spot on Earth is nearly impossible. Here's why that happens, specifically out on the water. First is the grid resolution. Global models like the GFS look at the Earth in large chunks, often 5 to 15 miles wide, which calculates an average across the entire area. The app doesn't account for thermal air rising off the beach or how local sea breezes stack up against the pressure gradient. Second is wave height averages. When PredictWind or NOAA predicts 2-foot seas, that number is a statistical average of the highest 1/3 of the waves. In real terms, if the forecast says 2 feet, you will routinely hit individual 3 to 4 footers. And the third point is current and channel compression. Think of wave energy like a highway of moving water. In deep water, that energy has plenty of vertical room to roll. But as the water hits the shores and gets squeezed between the jetty walls, that energy has nowhere else to go but up. Now stack wind on top of that. If the tide is going out of the marina into the Gulf while the wind blows back towards shore, the wind catches the top of those outgoing waves, holding them up and stacking them on top of each other.
That's what creates that steep square wave profile with almost no interval. The app sees the regional wind speed, but it doesn't calculate the physical bottleneck at the mouth of an inlet. So if the apps can't give us a full story, how do you plan your day out? Here are 3 rules I started following for my own trips. First, multiply the forecast. If the app shows 8 knots of wind and 2-foot seas, mentally prepare for 12 knots of wind and a 4-foot swell. If your boat or crew can't handle a 50% multiplier, then don't go. Second, look at the wave period, not just the height. A 4-foot wave at a 10-second interval is a thing of beauty. However, a 3-foot wave at 3 seconds will rattle your teeth and make your crew sick. Don't forget to check the swell interval because it might be more important than the height. And third, conform the forecast numbers against real-time buoys. Before you leave the dock, look at the NDBC data near you. Weather models predict what might happen, buoys tell you exactly what is happening in real time. When you open the NDBC map, don't just look at the wind speed, look at the significant wave height and the dominant wave period. If you see 3-foot waves at a 4-second period, that ratio should tell you the water is steep and angry. Aim for a number that is at least twice the height, like 3-foot height at 7 or 8-second intervals, which is likely to be a smooth and comfortable ride.
This is the part I was telling you about that always makes me nervous coming through here because there's so much traffic. I have a barge coming up here, and if I look behind me, I got a crew boat and another tug. This guy just kind of backed out in front of us, and I'm holding up the traffic, so I'm going to stay over here on this far side so they can pass me on the port side, and I can try to stay out of their way. I'm holding up business here.
That wraps up this week. Thanks for following our journey, one adventure at a time. Join us on Patreon for bonus footage and behind-the-scenes updates. Your support there is truly what helps fuel these adventures. And don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe, and leave a comment. We'll see you next week.